Hello. My name is Doug Stevenson. I'm a developer advocate with the Firebase team. I am really excited to be here, partly because I've enjoyed my travels here. So we've been to Tokyo, we've been to Hanoi, and now Seoul. It's been great to see what developers are doing with Firebase. And I'm a little bit more excited because I've had a lot of coffee this morning. I don't normally drink coffee, so I'm extra excited. But what I'm really excited to tell you about today is how you can use Firebase to build high-quality apps. So the question I'd like to ask today is, what are the virtues of a high-quality app? How can you tell an app is high quality from one that is not? At Google, we want everyone to build high-quality apps. Of course, we want our own apps to be high quality as well. Now, typically, when you think about quality, you consider user experience. So you want good graphics, good design. If it's an Android app, maybe you're using material design. You have an app that's delightful, that's easy to use. And those are all good things. Your app should be delightful and easy to use. But there are some things I think that Firebase can be helpful for that some developers don't think about. So here's a list of things that I think is important. I'll go over these one by one, so don't memorize these now. I'll cover all of them individually. But I think high-quality apps are stable and prevent regressions. Now, maybe this is just another way of saying an app doesn't crash. Obviously, crashing apps are not very high quality. Your users will not like that. And in fact, apps that crash will develop poor ratings on the market. This is very bad for you, right? You want a high rating because you have a high-quality app. Now, on the Google Play Store, we looked at all of the one-star ratings, and we saw that 51% of one-star ratings are because of stability issues, meaning the app just crashed. It didn't work at all for some users. And 41% were functionality related, so the app just didn't do what the user wanted. Now, I want to focus on this 51%. This 51% is interesting because we can prevent them, we can stop them, and we can raise all of our ratings for all of our apps if we just use the right tools. So that's why we have Firebase Test Lab for Android. With Firebase Test Lab, you can have a collection of devices ready and waiting to test your app so that you don't have to maintain them. So as the picture suggests here, we maintain a farm of mobile apps. There's thousands of them in a data center, much like the way you would handle servers, except these are just mobile devices in a rack available for you to test your app. Now, if you're an Android developer or an iOS developer, you know it can be expensive to maintain your own collection of devices. One device can cost $500, $600, right? You don't want to have to buy them. And if it breaks, you don't want to have to buy another one or maintain another one. We handle that with Firebase Test Lab. We maintain the devices, and you effectively just rent out space and time from our farm. So with Firebase Test Lab for Android, this is a tool you use during development. So every day you can be using Firebase Test Lab to test your app and make sure it has no crashes and it doesn't regress on old crashes. You can use it to discover errors before they reach your users. You don't want to ship a new app and have your users be the first ones to discover a crash. You want to find them first. And if you're an Android developer, you know that you have two choices. So one choice is you can do instrumentation tests. And an instrumentation test is just a way of scripting the operation of your app. So you can script it to launch, push buttons, navigate activities. This is good. This is a way of checking to make sure your app is functionally complete. It renders screens the way you expect, and it doesn't crash. But these can be kind of difficult to maintain over time and maybe time-consuming. And we understand a lot of small companies just don't have time to write tests. And that's okay. Not everyone can do that. So your other option for testing with Test Lab for Android is to do a robo-test. And a robo-test is a special kind of test in Test Lab that is automatic and intelligent. So what a robo-test will do is discover all the features in your app and push the buttons, enter text into fields, navigate and crawl your app. In the same way that Google crawls your website, a robo-test will crawl your mobile app. And if there are any crashes or any problems, you can find out about it that way. In Test Lab, we like to say you should test in the lab and not on your users. So every time you run a test on every device that you select to run on, you receive a report. And this report contains a complete log on the device. So from the moment the device booted all the way through your test, you will know everything in that log. It will also collect screenshots. So as the test runs, you can get screenshots to see if all of your screens are rendering properly. So for robo-tests, this happens manually. But if you're writing instrumentation tests, we provide an API so that you can choose to capture screens at specific points in time. And along with that, you'll receive videos of your app in progress so that you can see what your app looks like as it transitions from one screen to the next. And lastly, if there are any crashes on the device, you will know those as well. You'll get a complete stack trace so you can find out which devices are crashing, which configurations are crashing, and you can solve them that way. So we've tried very hard to make sure Firebase Test Lab for Android is very easy to use. We've made sure it works with the tools you already know. That's very important. We don't want to introduce yet another tool. You should be using the tools you already know. So one way to run a test is to use the Firebase web interface. Now, if you're already a Firebase developer, you know the console. You just log into the console, select Test Lab, and choose to run a test. Upload an APK, and Test Lab will deploy it to our devices, run it, and the report will appear right there in the web interface. Another way to run a test is with Android Studio 2.0. So with Android Studio now, you can create a run configuration, and that run configuration can deploy to Test Lab. So this is just like any other run configuration that you use to launch your app, debug your app, to do any sort of running. Android Studio 2.0 can deploy to Test Lab directly. A third way of running your test is through a command line interface. Now, this can be difficult to use if you're typing it in at the command prompt. We actually don't intend for you to type this at the command prompt because the commands can be very long. But what you can do with this is run a test through your continuous integration server. So if you're using a tool like Jenkins to do automatic daily builds, you can create a build step, and in that build step, use the command line interface to automatically test your app. So for every build, even every check-in, you can run and make sure all of your tests are working and verify your app doesn't start breaking all of a sudden. And the fourth way to run a test is through the Play Store Developer Console. Now with the Developer Console, everyone uses this on Android, right? Everyone has to publish their app, and so you're probably familiar with this tool already. How Play Store integrates with Test Lab is every app you upload to an alpha or beta channel in the Play Store automatically gets a 5-minute robo-test free of charge. So normally Test Lab is a paid service, and it costs $5 per hour to test an app, or if you're using a virtual device, $1 an hour. But the Play Store Developer Console test is free of charge. So every app you use or publish to an alpha or beta channel gets this test. So you should use this. And this is a very, very handy tool. And there's no reason not to use this. So you can use it as kind of a last smoke test or final test to make sure your app is working correctly. Now, I think high-quality apps are functional across a variety of devices. And I've talked a lot about Android today. I'm an Android developer, and I know that there are thousands of Android devices out there. And it can be kind of difficult to make sure your app looks good and performs well on all of them. But I think high-quality apps can make that happen. Now, your users have chosen the device they want, and that's good for users to have lots of choices. So some users want small phones, large phones, small tablets or large tablets. It can be difficult to maintain all those devices yourself, but Test Lab has all of those devices available. So we have a variety of devices from a variety of manufacturers and a variety of models that you can use to make sure your app is looking the way it should on each one of them. And if you're an Android developer, you know that you can have a different user experience for each device. So the UI you present for a small device should be different than the one that you present for a large device. Small screen UIs often don't translate to large screen UIs, but you'd rather not have to, again, buy and maintain all these devices. So instead, let Test Lab be that series of devices that you use. So with Firebase Test Lab for Android, you can test across a variety of devices. You can examine screenshots on all of those devices to make sure your UI is rendering properly. And it makes it really easy to find out which screens need your attention. Now, I also think high-quality apps are monitored continually for issues in production. So you should always know the health of your app. And high-quality app developers triage their bugs according to impact. So you should always be addressing the most serious problems first. And so Firebase provides a tool for that too. We call that Firebase crash reporting. With Firebase crash reporting, this is a tool you use in production. So if there's an error on a customer's device, that will get collected and transmitted and sent to our web console. Now, with each report, you'll know exactly what happened. You'll know the device make, model. You'll know its size, memory. You'll know the stack trace, everything that happened that led up to the event. And in combination with Firebase Analytics, you can know how crashes affect the usage patterns of your app. So with Analytics, you can track a series of events that happen in your app. And a crash becomes an event just like any other. So now you can do a funnel analysis to find out if a crash happened, did that stop people from making a purchase in your app? You want people to make purchases in your app. That's the ultimate goal, is to make money. You also want to know if there's a crash that prevented someone from logging in, or a crash that reduces the amount of time that people are spending in your app. You want more people to spend more time in your app, and you can understand if there's a crash, is that impacting the user experience? So with Firebase crash reporting, there's a console, and this console has graphs that are updated over time so that you can monitor the health of your app. And this is very handy if you've just released a new version of your app and you want to find out, is it working well? So you can look at the console and find out what is the rate of crashes and be able to respond quickly if there is a problem. And when there is a problem, we actually group the crashes. We cluster them by similarity so that you can find out which crashes are happening more often than others and which crashes are impacting more users. This becomes your to-do list, your most important things to fix. And crash reporting helps you know that. Now, this is a brief diagram of how we see Firebase Test Lab and Firebase crash reporting working together during your normal development procedure. So in development, we expect that you could use Firebase Test Lab to continually check the quality of your app. And when you're happy with that, you can publish it to your alpha or beta channel. Now, as I mentioned before, when you publish to an alpha or beta channel in the Google Play Store, you get that final free robo test. So you're still doing a little bit of testing there, but not a lot. Then, if you have alpha and beta users, and I highly recommend that you get alpha or beta users who are willing to test your app, you can then use Firebase crash reporting to collect any remaining crashes so that you can diagnose them in the web console. And then when you're finally happy with your alpha or beta distribution, you can publish that to production. And then in production, when it finally reaches your users, you can use crash reporting to find any other crashes and take that information and create new tests that demonstrate that you fixed the error. Now, I also think high-quality apps are deeply concerned about the total user experience. So I mentioned before that high-quality apps have a good user experience, but sometimes we don't really think about what the user experience is if there's an error. So if you're an Android developer like me, you're probably familiar with this dialog box. This dialog box says, my app crashed, and there's an OK button. And this is not a very good dialog box to see. First of all, it's not OK that there's an error. The user is forced to say, I'm OK, but it's not OK. This button, I think, should actually say not OK, because it's never OK for your app to crash. But this is the experience, and this is terrible. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it once it's happened. So how do we deal with this? How do we make this better? Well, that's kind of hard. I think I missed a slide, but that's okay. So sometimes when your app crashes, users will want to go to the Play Store and say, create a rating, a low rating, and then say in the message what happened with the crash. So in this case, an unhappy user said, it crashes when I select the news category. Now, this is not a helpful review. It's not even a review. It's an error report. It's a bug report. And it's also a low rating, which impacts the overall score of your app. So you want to prevent these. You want to stop these. These are not helpful reviews. In fact, if you're using crash reporting, you already know this. So this doesn't help anyone. So we can stop this, I think, by using Firebase notifications. With Firebase notifications, you can send messages directly to your users to tell them what's going on with your app. So you have this communication channel. You can send messages to your users, and what you can do is, when you know there's a crash, acknowledge it. Just tell your users, I know there's a crash, and I'm sorry. I think that goes a long way to helping the perceived value and the perceived quality of your application. You can also promise a fix. Tell your users that you're working on it, and you can even offer credits or offer an incentive to get back into the app, even though we know there's a problem. Now, I think this will help stop those negative ratings, those one-star ratings that are just trying to tell you that something's going on. If you've already contacted your users and you've told them there's an error, I think they're less likely to go to the store to try to report that error. Now, I think high-quality apps also react quickly to issues as they occur. So if you know there's a bug in your app, you should be able to respond quickly and fix it. And you can do that, well, so if you're a developer, and this is for Android and iOS, you know that you code your app, and that takes some time. And then there's a testing procedure, and that takes time. Then you finally submit that to the store. And if you're an iOS developer, you have to go through an approval process, and that can take any amount of time. You just don't have a guarantee until it's finally released to your users. Now, this process takes too much time. This is not a very quick way to respond to an error in your app. So instead, why don't you use Firebase crash reporting to gate access to new features? So you can think of Firebase crash reporting as a set of key-value pairs that are controlled from the Firebase web console. And with that set of key-value pairs, you can configure, is a feature on or is a feature off? And what you do is you code your new features behind a switch. And when you publish your app, it's initially off. Then when you choose, you turn it on. You flip the switch and make it available to users. Now, what this lets you do is, if there's an error, then you can just turn the switch off, unpublish it, and you don't have to go through the store procedures, the week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks it takes to fix the problem. Just turn it off, and it won't crash anymore, right? That gives you time to fix it, and your users can stay happy. Now, another thing you can do with remote config is slowly distribute your app to new users. So you may use remote config to only make a new feature available to 5 or 10% of your users. And you can test on them. You can see if it works okay. And as it continues to work okay, you can publish to more and more users until you finally hit 100% distribution. And that's how you know all of your users are happy. So if you spot a problem early, use remote config and turn it off. In order to gain confidence that your app is working well, use it to distribute to new users over time. Now, I also think high-quality apps earn more revenue. Now, this is kind of obvious, right? Everyone knows that high-quality apps simply earn more money. And that's what we're all here to do, right, is make money from our mobile apps. So how can we do that with Firebase? Well, again, we can use remote config to perform an A/B test of your app. So if you don't know what your users like the most, just perform an experiment. So say you have 2 different experiences that you want to test, and we'll call that an A experience and a B experience. And if you want to know which one works better, use remote config to set up this experiment, and then use Firebase Analytics to study the results. So we know an app is making more money when there's more in-app purchases, or there are more users using your app, or they spend more time in your app. You can use Firebase Analytics to study this, the results of your experiment, and then when you know which one works better, move everyone to the experience that generates more money. Now, the bottom line for me is that I think high-quality apps lead to more happy users. And more happy users means more time spent in your app, which means more money spent in your app. At Google, we care deeply about the overall quality of your app and the overall quality of our apps. And so I told you a little bit today about Firebase Test Lab. That is a tool we use at Google to ensure the quality of our own apps. And we use crash reporting tools, and we perform experiments. And we found that these are best practices for determining what are the highest quality apps. And we hope that you go out and create high quality apps as well. Now, thank you for your time. I hope that you use Firebase very effectively. I hope that does everything you want to do, and I can't wait to see what you build. Please come visit us over in the Firebase kiosk. If you have any questions, you just want to talk, or just let me know. What do you think of Firebase? I'm so excited to know. Thank you.